Hi everyone, welcome to another Compass vlog. We're a little slap happy, we're a little silly today, so you've been warned.
We are going on vacation.
We are, we're actually going to go on vacation.
Going to be with our family, and so we decided it'd be a great time to start a series on family.
I know, right? I mean, we have one.
Yeah, and we do it. We do family all the time, all day, and many of you know, we have 3 kids. We have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old. So we are smack in the middle of our teens. We've been doing this. This isn't our first rodeo.
Nope.
But we've been doing this together, working together, doing life together, doing family together. And so we've been asked a lot how we do this.
I think I want to make a couple of statements of things that we believe to be true that might be countercultural to some things that people say. I'm going to push the envelope just a bit, and hopefully this will make you think a little bit. First of all, there is no such thing as a terrible twos.
Amen.
It doesn't exist. It's only terrible if you declare it's terrible. We had 3 kids. All of them were 2 at one point or another. They didn't skip from 1 to 3. And one of them is Sadie's little clone. That's our youngest, and she's our strongest-willed child, and she was never terrible.
No.
She
honestly probably went through 2s the best. I think our oldest was probably had the hardest time going through 2s.
She had the most behaviors, but she wasn't terrible.
None of our kids were terrible.
And I think part of the reason none of our kids were terrible is because we just refused to speak that over them.
It's always what you make it. Oh man, people just want to speak so much garbage. They want to say things like, "Oh no, your kids are teenagers. Just you wait."
Yeah, exactly.
There's always just
you've lost
wait.
your kids to adolescence. Hopefully you'll still like them when they're 18 again.
No, and I hate all that talk. So
I love hanging out with my kids.
Please don't ever say that stuff to me because I won't receive it well.
Yeah. She'll actually call you out and call you names. She'll call you.
I won't call you names, but I will say, hey. No. There's no season of life that's terrible when you're raising kids. There's definitely seasons of life that are challenging. There's these times that you really I think it makes you question yourself sometimes. Like you end up going, okay, I've seen this behavior in my own life. I haven't worked through it in my own life. What's it going to turn out like in their life? So, I mean, you have these seasons.
Is this what I look like at 2 years old? Interesting.
Right. There's these seasons of self-doubt. There's these seasons of challenge. There's these seasons of struggle with yourself, with your child, like finding that connection and making sure you stay connected. So all that occurs. Like, please don't hear us wrong. Like, it's not just roses and candy in our family, but we absolutely agree. And this has been our strategy. There is no terrible 2s. Teenage years don't suck.
This principle that we're talking about really is about declaration. And it applies also to marriages. There is not necessarily something called a 7-year itch, if you know what that means. I mean, we've been married now for 18 years. The only itch I've ever had was the itch for my own wife, and just because we've been married that long doesn't mean our connection and our desire to be together has diminished any less.
So when I was I was probably 20, and they would just wait till you're married. Like it's, the love, there's no more romance, there's no more love, just all this garbage. And it's not true at all.
I mean, I have days where I'm probably more romantic than others, and I'm probably a little less giddy than I was about being your husband.
Definitely a little less thunderstruck than I was first together.
Exactly, but love doesn't have to dissipate. It does grow and change. It kind of calms down a little bit over time. It's not quite as hyper and kinetic. I'm a little less of a Tigger husband than I was when we were newlyweds.
So there's some good things about that all calming down too. I mean. There's the highs and the lows when you're a Tigger, right?
Yeah,
I mean, when you're first in a relationship,
Seriously.
He looks at you wrong and you get all upset about it. And after 18 years of marriage, he looks at me wrong and I go, "What's up with you today?"
Okay, I'm going to tell a story on myself that you're going to love, and I'm going to regret probably telling it. But story time. I tell this because I want to take a shot at the notion that, marriage love fades. Because I don't think it has to fade. So we were married for about 3. You know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly the story you're telling.
So we were married for about three months, and I wasn't working at Compass, and we had just started serving Compass had just started serving the Bay Area about a year before, and Sadie was working basically as the case facilitator from Reading.
From a distance, it was crazy.
It was
crazy hard.
Not a good model for business. But be that as it may, so and I was great with her work schedule. It didn't affect me at all personally. And 2 to 3 nights a week, she was up at 2, 3 in the morning dealing with emergency phone calls. And one night she had a phone call, and while she was on this phone call, she realized she had a little hangnail, and so she saw my car keys on the kitchen counter, and I always like to keep fingernail clippers on my car keys. Don't ask me why.
He always has, like our whole marriage.
Mm-hmm. And so she's on the phone talking, and she sees this hangnail and sees my car keys, and so she clips this hangnail off while she's on the phone, and she needed to put the nail clippers
just did.
away.
I just
but
because
she
I was
wasn't
on the
really
phone and it was a very intense call.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, nail clippers, they go in my makeup bag. So I wasn't thinking that they were Eric's keys. I was just thinking of the nail clippers, and so I put it in my makeup bag, not like a normal key place at all.
So then, she goes back to bed. She goes about her day. I get up in the morning and I go about my morning. She's bye baby. She heads out, and I need to go to work, and I go to look for my car keys. I can't find them. Now, my car keys psychologically represented my freedom, my autonomy, and I guess probably some of my latent adolescence at that point. And
and Eric's also was an only child, so he has a sister, but they're 18 years apart. So he grew up as an only child. So he's also not at all used to people using or messing with his stuff. Like, that's not in his wheelhouse. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. Nothing was ever where you thought you put it last. Like, it's a totally different lifestyle. But so part of it was just also our background. Our background was coming into the conversation as well.
So I have to go to work. I can't find my keys. I start freaking out. I call Sadie on her phone. She's in a meeting. I probably called her on her phone 5 times in about 20 minutes. I kind of blew up her phone. And honey, where are my keys? I'm freaking out. And so I'm totally overreacting. And she wasn't super considerate about my keys. Understandable, at 2 a.m. I was freaking out about it. So she finally, so I get a ride to the office. To my office. While I'm there, she finds my keys. She calls me. She brings them to me, and I said a comment that will live in infamy. I think it's actually the shockwaves of what I said are still floating over the air of Lake Michigan by now. And I said, I can't believe you were so forgetful and thoughtless about this.
And irresponsible.
Are you going to forget this sort of stuff for the rest of our lives? Someday are you going to forget our children?
So that was the maximizing and and the experience. So there are some real advantages to love that's matured over time.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it fades. Maturing is different than fading. That's kind of a big lie that people kind of worry about and fear. It doesn't have to fade if you're intentional.
One of the lessons we've learned is just the power of declarations and making sure that the things that you say to each other, about marriage, about raising kids, that they have these, that they really are wavelengths, and they really do reflect deep, dark parts of our hearts. Because we all have our moments of feeling like, oh my gosh, she's going to be like this forever or whatever. Those are the things that you want to not declare. And what you want to declare is that this marriage is strong, and that we have found a life partner, and that this is the best thing this is the best decision I've ever made.
Absolutely. If you have habits of thinking these judgmental thoughts about each other, or even thinking,
about your kids,
kids, what they're going to be like,
or about an era of time, even about for your kids, like, I'm dreading 13, so hormonal, all these kinds of things. Those kinds of statements actually,
they become self-fulfilling prophecies because you get what you look for. But I really want to encourage you to make declarations over your family and over your life that you want to see happen. And so one of our declarations, we said it actually during our wedding day, and we've pursued it ever since, is that our love would not fade. And so far it hasn't.
The other thing we say a lot is marriage rocks.
Marriage rocks.
We love marriage.
We do love marriage. And I'm going to sign off right now because we love marriage.
You're ridiculous.
All right, guys. Have a good day.